Well. Chargers didn't make it easy, but they win on a last-second field goal in Atlanta, and we're here to cover it. Garrett here, Jamie here for Lightning Round After Hours. And Jamie, so we don't have to talk about it again, Big Dicker, the kicker, made the game-winning field goal, and we can move on from that because there's a lot to talk about. And, yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Where do you want to start here, Jamie? Because there's a lot to break down.
Well, I think, we've been saying it all season, and I think it bears repeating, I think the first thing I have to say is they got a road win in the NFL, and those are not easy to come by. So it was, while it may not have been, the blowout win that we've all been craving, and they certainly did not look like they were ready to play to start the game coming off of a bye week, and I'm sure we'll get into that. They were able to fight back. They got a big win. They made plays when they needed to. They got plays out of special teams and the defense and the offense. And they won the game. So coming away with the win on the road is a positive. Finding a way to scratch it out and make the plays when you needed to was a positive. And it was just a weird game. Marked by weird plays. You had the ball clank off of Palmer's hands that winds up in interception. You have Drake London all but hand the football to Khalil Mack. That play with Eckler down the sideline where we thought he stayed on his feet, we thought he stayed up, and he wound up having his elbow hit. The double fumble at the end of the game. It was just a really weird, like Twilight Zone kind of a game where it just seemed like they traded, kind of weird, bizarre, inexplicable plays back and forth. And the last one worked out in the Chargers' favor, and they won the game because of it.
Yeah, in the first half, it was all either 3-and-outs or scores, and then there were back-to-back turnovers for the Chargers and the Falcons, and then that ending to the game was all weird with the double fumble, and then got them out of field goal range, and then they had to get themselves back into field goal range. It was a very weird game, but I know that there's going to be a lot of, I'm sure, talk about how they play today and all that. But honestly, like what James talking about is getting a win on the road is huge. Atlanta's strength was running the ball, and they ran it down the Chargers' throat for that first quarter at least. But then to turn around and put some drives together, win that game late, they had to get a stop. They were able to stop the run late in that game, even with Austin Johnson going down. And then they were able to produce points without Mike Williams and without Keenan Allen. I mean, that's pretty huge. They were down a lot this game. They had no receivers worth playing as a first wide receiver or wide receiver one. So in order to get those yards and the big game from DeAndre Carter, Gerald Everett produced a little bit today, Joshua Palmer at times too. That really, and I know we were going to get to it, but I think that's a good place to start. That is huge for this Chargers team, and to be now 5-3 after this game is huge, is really big, because they were down big again today in Atlanta.
Yeah, you're down 2 scores in the first quarter, 2 3-and-outs. Like you said, the Falcons are running the ball down their throat, not really even having to throw the ball to move it 80 yards for a score. It looked bleak. I mean, we were trading texts early in the second quarter, hopefully they give us something to talk about, because right now this feels a hell of a lot like the last game. And they were able to come back and get the win, which is huge. And I think aside from that, there are some positives to take away from it. And we can get to the negatives later, because there are some. But for me, I think the biggest positive is, even though he didn't put up huge numbers, I think we saw the closest thing to a 100% physically fit Justin Herbert that we've seen since week 1. He's still holding on to the ball too much. He's still taking his time getting out. There are things that are giving him issues with his post-snap reads. Those, zero blitz looks are still tripping him up a little bit. He's having the hard time getting the ball out but from a physical standpoint, from his release and getting the ball out and putting the zip on the ball when he needed to, and making money throws on 3rd down and 4th down when he needed to, finding Palmer to set up the game-winning field goal. He made some really big throws. And I think from a physical standpoint, he looked more like himself. I think there's still some improvement left to be made, and you'd still like to see them throw the ball down the field a little bit, even though they're having a hard time with the receiving group getting down the field. You'd like to see them try to stretch the field a little bit to open things up. But you mentioned it. He got the ball to Carter. Palmer, think he had 8 for 106 or 8 for 105.
Mm-hmm.
Palmer was really good. And outside of that one ball that clanked off of his hands, he made a couple tough physical catches, made that big catch in the fourth quarter to set up the game-winning field goal. So lots of good things, I think, offensively to talk about in terms of guys getting healthy, guys making plays. And, Lombardi, when they needed to, Lombardi finding plays that worked for the guys who were on the field, which is something they've had a hard time with.
Really, really hard time. And they lost Austin Johnson in that game. Trey Pipkins went down. Storm Norton did enough with the limited snaps he was in. Tito got in on a almost sack there, and did okay in the run game. And, once they got it at the end of the game, the Falcons did, I thought it was going to be, they're going to run it just like the first quarter. And to their credit, they stopped the run for the most part through after that first quarter, which was really ugly. I think they only got 6 rushing yards in that second quarter. They were able to buckle down, stop the run for the most part, and they were able to come away with this win. And the fact they were able to produce without a Keenan and a Mike is really huge. And the fact that they had some injuries go on in that game and still were able to get the win was really big too. I'm glad we got to see some Spiller today. Isaiah Spiller. We saw Sony Michel just look awful early on. He dropped a pass, right? There was a one run, drop pass, and then he was out.
Spiller?
And then, no, Michel.
Oh, yeah.
If I remember correctly. And then Isaiah Spiller comes in, pretty nice. They had this interesting wrinkle today where they had Sony Michel on pass blocking reps, and they lined him up basically behind the left guard, behind Filer, and just had him as an extra offensive lineman in there to pass block, which was interesting for Michel. But nice to see Spiller get some reps when Michel just is not working out.
Yeah, it's good to see the coaches starting to make some adjustments that we've been calling for all season. And I think we saw some adjustments on offense, and we saw some personnel and scheme-related adjustments on defense. That was something that I want to talk about too. Seeing Spiller play was good. He had I think his first touch of the game was a really nice. He made a little jump cut in the hole to make the first man miss. Winds up getting 5 yards on a play where, Michel's feet probably stop at the line of scrimmage and he falls forward for 1.5 yards, and we get 5 out of it. So that's a good thing. We talked about them finding ways to get the ball to Carter and Everett and Palmer when they needed to. And I think in certain situations, they went away from stick, which is something that they've leaned on quite a bit. Stick as in the play call, obviously, not in terms of Easton stick. It seemed like they were attacking the intermediate part of the field more, the middle intermediate part of the field more. They were layering their spacing out their routes and structuring their routes a little bit better to get guys open, deep and intermediate over the middle, which created some big plays for them when they needed them on third down. We saw quite a few plays where Palmer came across the field and made plays. There was a big play where Herbert fit a ball to Carter between 2 defenders, and he made a nice catch and run play. I still don't know how Herbert got the ball to Carter on that play. He really had no business making that throw, but he made a great throw.
No.
But overall, and then talking about defense, they made an adjustment during the game where they went away from their typical 2 linebacker set. They only had Tranquil on the field at linebacker. They took Murray off, and they had 4 bigs up front. And that kind of helped stop the run in the second quarter, and it settled things down after that first touchdown drive. So starting to see some adjustments with personnel, some adjustments with scheme, which is a good thing. I thought we saw some signs of the clock management improving at the end of the half and at the end of the game. They all but ended. They basically controlled the ball for the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter to go down and get that field goal, and they managed the clock really well doing it. I thought, had it not been for Eckler's fumble, they would have marched right down the field and kicked that field goal, and it would have been, a clean win without that last turnover, which was kind of another weird play. But
bizarre.
Yeah, but overall, seeing them manage the clock better, forcing the Falcons to burn their timeouts, controlling the last 4 minutes of the clock was really good. They set themselves up for a 2-for-1 by scoring at the end of the first half. I think some people were unhappy about them calling a timeout before the final score there in the first half. I didn't really have a problem with it. I think you want to get the right personnel on the field, and chance of the Falcons offense going down the field in 25 seconds are pretty slim. So I didn't have a real big issue with that. So, personnel and scheme improvements are good. clock management things starting to seem like they're starting to fix themselves. We saw some big fourth down calls that worked out for them. Overall, I think it was, even though they didn't win by 2 scores, they didn't blow out a pretty bad football team. They won and they made some improvements, and they got through a sleepy first quarter and a sleepy third quarter.
Yeah, which is now a pattern because they're the third team in history to be down 10-plus points in the first quarter for 4 straight games. So that's going to have to be fixed easy, especially when you're coming out of a bye and you're totally prepared. These guys are rested, ready to get back to football, and they come out so lethargic in that first quarter. I mean, I don't know how they're not going to be able to do that against these better teams when this schedule gets a little bit tighter, but they found a way to win. One thing that I found interesting was Atlanta was in zone. They were in like a kind of cover 2 in that first quarter, and then Herbert completed one pass to DeAndre Carter, and then it looked like it was like all man from there on out, and he just started picking them apart when the Falcons went man, which was kind of interesting, and I'm not sure why they did it, but once they started to feed Eckler, it started to pay off a little bit. I don't know about that fumble at the end, but Eckler had a really good game. And speaking of receivers, so DeAndre Carter, really good game. That throw from Herbert was amazing between 2 guys. That window was tight, and had some actually positive returns too. He had that return right before the end of the game there with 4 minutes left, where he's able to get it close to midfield and kind of keep it a short field for the Chargers to drive. So credit to DeAndre Carter, and also we haven't mentioned yet the offensive line keeping Herbert clean for most of that game. They protected him well, and even when Trey Pipkins went out, Storm Norton did pretty good. But one thing I will say, way too many ineligible men downfield today. It killed a lot of big plays. But other than that, protection-wise, O-line did good.
Yeah, it was a relatively undisciplined game, especially coming off of the bye. You mentioned the ineligible man downfield. There were some holding calls that took some big plays off the field, off the board. It just seemed like they kept hitting points where they'd shoot them.
And he's frozen.
A little bit more organized, a little bit more prepared, more disciplined coming out of a bye week. They spent 2 weeks working on running the ball, working on stopping the run, and they didn't really do either today. So I'm not really sure what they spent the last 2 weeks doing. But overall, I think, like I said, win a road game, show some signs of improvement, show some adjustments, all good.
Yeah, I thought they mixed, and you froze there for a second, JB, but I'm glad you're back. I thought there were some nice little play calls in the middle of that game where they were able to send Tranquil and Derwin for some third down blitzes when they were driving, which was nice. I thought Michael Davis had a pretty nice game. A lot of people were down on Michael Davis, but stepping up once J.C. Jackson, we know, was out for the season. So it was nice to have him in there. Had a pass breakup before the half. Really nice, tight defense on a red zone fade to Drake London his way. So good on him. And didn't really hear a lot from Asante Samuel Jr., who did pretty well in the end. I will say that Alohi Gilman and Nasir Hadley had their issues today, especially on a throw from probably a better quarterback. That's a touchdown at the end of that game to Kyle Pitts on that broken coverage. But for the most part, defense did pretty good. The run game was a mess in the first quarter. They were able to settle down. They adjusted. So credit to coaching staff on that. But they did pretty well on defense too.
Yeah, I think they're starting to find something that works on third down. They've typically been pretty passive, conservative on third down in terms of blitz calls. But when they've been most successful getting opposing offenses off the field on third down, it's when they're blitzing the hell out of the quarterback. We saw it against Denver, and then they kind of went away from it against Seattle quite a bit, and they got back to it this week against the Falcons, and it really paid off. We saw Tranquil, I think, come up with a sack. Derwin had a sack on a blitz. They were really, when they blitzed, they were really in Mariota's face quite a bit on third down, and they were forcing him to pull the ball down, throw the ball away. I think there was one play where it looked like they should have had him sacked, and he got away and found a running back down the sideline. But overall, in general, I think overall in general, the blitz packages work pretty well. and that's something they should stick with. They have athletes out there. They have guys who are good attacking the line of scrimmage. And I think they should use those guys. Tranquil, even Adderley is an effective blitzer at times. Derwin, obviously. Use those guys the way they're meant to be used on third down. Attack the quarterback. Force mistakes. Force them to hold the ball. Pull the ball down. Don't just let them stand back there and pick you apart. So I like that. And hopefully it's something they stick with because it's obviously a key to their success. Their last 2 wins, they blitzed a lot and they had a lot of success doing it. They didn't do it right before the bye, and they got shellacked. So what does that tell you?
And Drew Tranquil was part of that stopping the run in the second quarter, had 2 really big run stops. I know everybody's going to talk about him getting run over by Patterson for that touchdown, but had a sack on a third down, had 2 really big run stops when they were basically getting 6-7 yards a clip, it felt like, every time they were running in that first quarter. Drew Tranquil came in, got a run stop, and then forced them to throw it, and it was a 3-and-out quickly thereafter. So kind of setting a tone a little bit. Tranquil did. Had a nice game, got the sack, a couple run stops, and obviously that Patterson touchdown will be on Twitter all day today and tomorrow, but he had a really good game today.
Yeah, Tranquil continues to be, right now, I would say, one of the top 2 or 3 players on the defense week to week. He makes play after play. His run fits are generally pretty good. He's outside of that play with Patterson. He's generally a very reliable tackler. He's solid in coverage, really good blitzer. He's been great. And hopefully they value him as much as we fans value him, because it'd be really sad to see another star linebacker walk away at the end of the year.
I know.
Because they don't value the position or because they want to force feed Murray into that position. But Tranquil is really, really good. And one way or another, he's going to get paid at the end of the year. Hopefully it's with the Chargers.
Yeah. Let's hope so. The other thing I want to kind of touch on is just how bad these drops were today. We had a really big drop from Gerald Everett where he was running up the seam for, all by himself too. Huge gainer there. Palmer, of course, takes his eyes off the ball, clanks off his hands. There's a easy interception. Sony Michel had the drop today. Austin Eckler on that screen, I think it was in the red zone there. That drop was really bad where it seemed like he got a lot of green in front of him. There were just a lot of concentration issues today. And granted, there are some, there's no Keenan or Mike Williams, but those are starters. Gerald Everett, your starting tight end. Joshua Palmer is your wide receiver 3 right now. Sony Michel, Austin Eckler are your RB 1 and 2. I guess Michel could be 3. But Austin Eckler, your starting running back. I mean, these are still guys that are going to be on the field a lot going forward, even when Keenan Allen and Mike will get back. But there are just some real bad drops today, some concentration issues. I don't know if it was the bye and having that week off or whatever, but it was really bad today, especially when they needed everybody without your top 2 wide receivers. But those drops were just ugly today.
Yeah, the Eckler one, it looked to me live like he thought the ball was going to get knocked down because the defensive lineman jumped and tried to bat it down, and he just barely missed getting it with his fingertips, and it looked like Eckler was surprised that it got to him. The drop by Everett was awful. I mean, that's probably a 20 to 30-yard gain if he reels that in. There's nobody anywhere near him, and we know he's good with the ball in his hands after the catch. So that was really bad. And then the drop by Palmer, it looked to me like he had enough room to run for the first down if he caught it. I thought it didn't look like there was anyone within 5 yards of him, and he just rushed the turn. I don't know if that's a product of, playing, calling stick and having his feet stop and having to turn quickly and being worried about being surrounded by defenders or what, but that was a really bad drop and obviously made even worse by the fact that it was a turnover. And I think Palmer had another drop earlier in the game too, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, drops continue to be an issue. I don't know if it's the way Justin is throwing the ball. I thought on a couple of them, it seemed like he threw them with pretty good touch. He had to get the one to Eckler over the defender. So that wasn't an issue of him putting
like
too much
2 defenders.
On the ball. Yeah. That wasn't an issue of him overthrowing the ball. He tried to float it, and I think Eckler, like I said, was just surprised that it got to him. The one with Palmer where he tipped it for the interception, that looked to me like that had some touch on it too, and it hit him in the hands, and he just clanked it. I think he was just trying to run with it before he had the ball.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think there was too much mustard on the one with Everett. It looked like Herbert was
not.
trying to lead him up the field. There was some good touch on it, and it was thrown and placed perfectly. He just missed it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard during the broadcast, but they asked Joshua Palmer before this what it was like catching a ball from Justin Herbert, and he said it was like catching the Tasmanian devil. I don't know if you heard that part, but that's so, which I think was a great quote, and also I guess a little glimpse into what kind of ball he throws, which is tough because it just seems like everybody had a tough day catching the ball today.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about Herbert is I'm starting to get a little worried about his release. I thought he looked more healthy today from a rib standpoint.
Yes. Just to add, sorry, just to piggyback off that, the point in which I was like, okay, he's almost healthy was that designed RPO rollout towards the end of that game where they let him get 6 or 7 yards throughout this like rib injury after the fact. He's been like trying to duck and he'd slide short of the sticks or any kind of contact at all. And today he ran with the tackle, stayed in bounds, and they had a rollout with Herbert. So to me, I think that proves that he's a little bit more healthy than he was before. But go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I think the rib is getting better, which is encouraging. But it seems like his release has dropped. I remember him being more straight over the top the last couple of years.
Thank you,
and
Jamie.
It seems like everything is coming out sidearm. He's dropping the elbow, slinging the ball sidearm, like he's trying to aim it sidearm. And that's not the way I remember him throwing the last couple of years. So I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know if that's an adjustment he made to, relieve some pressure from the rib or what, but that's why so many passes are getting batted down. That, and he's staring down receiver at times, but the release has a lot to do with it. And with a 6'6" quarterback, you probably shouldn't be having so many balls batted at the line of scrimmage. So hopefully that's something that they can work on with him during the season and into the off season. I don't know if it's a product of coaching. I don't know if it's just a comfort level thing and he's going back to old bad habits because that's the way he threw the ball a lot in college. But it's something I'd like to see fixed because even though he is healthy and he did look a lot more like himself today from a physical standpoint and from a playmaking standpoint, I'm not crazy about that release, and I think it's an issue.
Boy, Jamie, I wish I had my Hammond B3 organ here. I wanted to play some like church music behind you, some amens from the choir. I said the same thing on Twitter today. This is a 6'6" quarterback who definitely had a different release. There's more of that dropping the elbow, sidearm motion that we're seeing a lot more this year. And there were two things that kept coming back in the comments, and not referring to his arm angle at all. It's he's hurt. And it's his ribs and give him a break. And then the other one was a slew of comments of the defense knows every routes when you're running these stick concepts. It's easy to jump into passing lanes. And while the injury might have a little bit to do with it, and maybe the route concepts has a little bit more to do with it, you can't deny the fact that his arm angle is completely different. He's a 6'6" quarterback. He's not Kyler Murray. He can see over these defensive linemen and his O-line, and he can fit those balls into tight windows, and he's done it throughout his career. We're seeing a lot more batted balls at the line than we have all year and all throughout Herbert's career. Maybe it's a little bit of the injury. Maybe it's a little bit of the routes, but it is definitely part of the arm angle as well. And I don't think anybody's really taken account of all that. And I know everybody wants us to do like side-by-side clips of Herbert where he's dropping his elbow and not dropping his elbow. Maybe we'll do that a little bit later, but I absolutely agree with you. It's definitely a angle issue from what I'm seeing at least, and I'm with you, Jamie. I don't know what's happening and why he's changed. Of course, there are times where he's got to do it, like when he had to throw it over those two defenders that were coming at him on that Eckler screen. He had to get the ball around, and sometimes he's got to do that when there's that free rusher coming and you got to get Eckler in the flat. Those are the okay ones. But when he's dropping back 5 to 7 step drops and he's hitting D linemen in their hands as he's trying to hit a ball over the middle, that's where I'm kind of a little bit more worried about it than the other ones where he's got to kind of torque his body a little bit more to get those throws off.
Yeah, I mean, there are times where you're going to have to throw off platform and you're going to have to change your arm angle to get the ball around somebody or hit a particular window. That's all part of the game. But I think his release is consistently lower than it has been the last 2 years, in my opinion. And, there are other contributing factors. I think it all adds up to batted ball issue. You mentioned the route concepts. Defenses know where the ball is going. That doesn't help. Herbert has not he's not been trusting what he's been seeing, and the ball is not coming out as fast as it was the first 2 years. It's coming out a lot slower. He's holding the ball, he's patting the ball, and then he's having to throw it into tighter windows late. And that is enabling defenders to get their hands up and knock the ball down too. But the throwing motion is making it easier for them to knock the ball down because of the angle. And I think these are things that should be cleaned up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, there's a lot of things they got to clean out. One, they got to, I don't know what they got to do to get this team up and ready once the first whistle starts in the first quarter. The drops have been a big issue. And that arm angle, I mean, it's a simple little thing. It could be the route concepts. It could be the ribs. But whatever it is, Justin Herbert, like we have both mentioned, looks a lot better today than he has since the rib injury. This is the best version of Justin Herbert we've seen since that hit he took. So, I mean, to me, there's a lot to improve on. And, once you see that kind of throw through the window to DeAndre Carter and those kind of wow throws popping up a little bit more and more, and then him being able to roll out and run, I think we're getting a little bit more of Justin Herbert back to 100%, and maybe the week off helped. But I think whether that's the thing you got to clean up at some point, and there's just seems like a lot more of recent memory. I don't have the stats on that or the analytics on how many batted balls Justin Herbert's had in his career, but it just seems like in recent memory it's a lot more than usual.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like seems like there's 4 or 5 in every game lately. I'm sure that's not the case, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah. And if you guys got any questions, go ahead and send them now, because we'll probably just answer some more questions and then get out of here. What else did you want to talk about today? Anything else on your mind that you were thinking about that we haven't touched on yet?
I think we've hit on a lot of positives. So I just think the next thing to talk about is I don't know if lack of preparation is the right word, but to have 2 weeks to prepare for, let's face it, not a very good Falcons team that isn't
and a predictable
loaded
one.
Not exactly loaded with offensive weapons, not exactly blessed with a skilled quarterback who's going to carve you up. They're going to come in and run the ball with 3 or 4 guys, and that you have to stop it. And it felt like they just weren't ready, and they sleptwalked through the first quarter in a big way.
For 4 straight games.
Yeah, for 4 straight games. But I think it's especially alarming to do that coming off the bye, where what the Falcons are going to do and how they're going to try to beat you, and you let them beat you that way for the first quarter. It was like they never got off the airplane. And they weren't engaged. They weren't sharp, they weren't disciplined, and they weren't prepared. And that's a coaching issue. Now they made some adjustments, and it felt a little bit more like last year, where Herbert kind of dug them out of a couple of holes, and they wind up winning a close game because Herbert was just so good on 3rd and 4th down when they needed it. But that's not something you can rely on all the time. So you'd like to see a little bit more preparation and just have them be a little bit more sharp in the first quarter, coming off of a bye with 2 weeks to prepare. That's just not acceptable.
No, to come out as sleepy as they were in that first quarter. And I mean, quite honestly, there's like a lot of, you could start beating on them for not being prepared for the bye week, but we're talking about 4 weeks in a row. This is like a consistent issue now. And I just don't know whatever they're doing isn't working. They've got to either get the veterans together or work something else out, because you can't play from 10 plus points behind every single game. And they're just going to end up getting their ass kicked like they did the week before. So the comments are saying, I don't know if there's any truth to this, that Eckler sprained his MCL per Staley. That would not be ideal. And
that would suck.
There is no confirmation on that, so I will not give it any more thought. Though, if it is true, send us something in the comments, and we'll talk about it. Let's see. Looks like they may have been referring to Austin Johnson, which would make a heck of a lot more sense. Okay,
that makes more sense.
Wrong Austin. It's Johnson. Okay. That makes a lot more sense when your
That makes
defensive
more
lineman
sense.
gets carted off the field, and Austin Eckler takes the last handoff to set you up for the field goal. So Austin's tough. He probably would have ran on a sprained MCL, but Austin Johnson, well, at least it's, it could have been worse. It looked really bad. So, whew, all right. I'm glad we cleared that.
Don't do that again. Whoever did that, don't do that again. That's ban-worthy type behavior.
It's all right.
Make sure we know which Austin we're talking about before we tweet that out.
Yeah. All right. So, from John Taylor, explain to me what they see in Sony Michel. Here's the better question, because who knows what they really see. But Joshua Kelly, by the way, injured. When he does come back at some point, do they release Sony Michel with the way they're playing Spiller right now?
I would like to say yes, but there's a really, really good chance that they are only playing Spiller because Kelly is hurt, and once Kelly is back, Spiller is back to being inactive.
And even with as effective as Spiller, well, at least look today, you think that they'll still go with Michel?
I think there's a good chance. And I think, asking what they see in Michel, I think what they see is Eckler. Eckler is their best pass protecting running back, and I think they think that Michel is their second best pass protecting running back. So they're willing to give up some pass catching ability and some explosiveness to make sure Herbert is protected when Eckler is off the field. I think if pressed, that's probably the explanation that we would get from the coaching staff. Mm-hmm. That's my guess. I think they're just not willing to risk pass protection, and they don't trust Kelly or Spiller back there to do that just yet.
Okay. Gilbert, you are forgiven. It's everybody makes a mistake. It's fine.
All good, Gilbert. I was just giving you a hard time. We're not going to ban you. At least not yet. But one more and you're out.
Yeah. So what do the Chargers do? Because they're about to get Christian McCaffrey, and he'll run for like 500 yards if they don't button this run defense up. What do you think? Do you think there's going to be a lot more 4-down linemen against San Francisco? You think they're going to go with that one linebacker look? Because I think after seeing what happened today, they're going to have to.
I think so. I don't think you can have Murray on the field on first and second down. He probably shouldn't be on the field at all, to be honest. But he can't be on the field on first and second down in obvious rundowns. I mean, I can't take any more of that guy making a tackle after an 8-yard gain and standing over the running back like he's just made a game-changing play.
Yeah. Uh-huh. He ran himself out of that like 44-yard gain by Tony Algier. It was his man to set the edge, and he did not, and allowed him to break open. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think they're just better with only Tranquil on the field, and they need more big guys. Now they're short a big guy. If Austin Johnson does have a sprained MCL and he's out for an extended period, now they're short, and we're probably going to see more of Tillery on the field on running downs out of what they'll think is necessity, which is less than encouraging. But we should see more of the 4-1. I think that's a big adjustment for them, and it's something that they should stick with.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot more Tito too, by the way, who wasn't bad today.
He was actually pretty good outside of that missed sack that he should have cleaned up on.
Yeah. Here from Brandon Wilson. Kind of unrelated, but I feel like Derwin was at his best his rookie year. What do you guys think? You think Derwin's fallen off a little bit?
I don't think he's the same guy that we have come to expect over the last few years. We've talked about this in the Discord a little bit for those of you who are there and remember. We talked about this week, and I think it's just a function of they've not been able to use him the way that they want to use him. The Derwin that we have become accustomed to is a Derwin who plays almost exclusively in the box and is matching up against tight ends underneath and is able to blitz and is making plays in the running game. And because they've had issues at corner and because they've had issues with Gilman and Adderley at safety, they've had to play Derwin deep more often. And I just don't think he is as instinctive playing off the ball as he is, say, playing in the slot or playing strong safety down in the box or playing nickel linebacker. I just don't think that's the best use of him. And I think there are some aspects of his game that are getting a little bit exposed because he's not able to play the way that they want to use him because they're having so many issues around him.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on everything I was going to say. Yeah, the closer to the line of scrimmage you can get Derwin, the better he is. And the fact that they can't get him near the line of scrimmage because there's issues at the second level with the linebackers outside of Tranquil. There's issues on the back end with Gilman and Adderley. And then there's a bunch of issues with corner when J.C. Jackson was in and some other injuries that they just, they haven't been able to play him like they should. He's not that Swiss Army knife that he was able to play his rookie year. So really, once I think they get everybody healthy, it might clean things up later on. But for now, he's just not playing where he should. And unfortunately, he's not getting the reps as much reps in the box as he should. Feels like they're using Derwin more as a Band-Aid than a weapon.
I think that sums it up pretty well. They're just not able to use him as that Swiss Army knife that we saw the first couple of years in the league the way they want to. And they're having to use him to fill gaps. And it's just not playing to his strengths, and it's not helping as much as they had hoped.
Do you think we'll ever see JT Woods with Nas struggling, Gilman not playing great? You think
Gilman
JT
sucking?
Woods? He was active today. I don't know if he got a single snap.
He did. I know I saw him on the field for at least one snap. I think he played quite a bit in the second half, to be honest with you. At least it felt like it. But one play is too much.
I'll have to look at it.
One play is too much, so that makes it feel like he's on the field too much, at least for me. I don't know that we'll see Woods. I mean, they're having so many problems in the back end with tackling and with covering and just carrying out basic assignments. Guys seem confused back there. They're dropping coverages. I don't know if they can put him back there because he can't tackle. You can't have the last line of defense on defense be unable to tackle. But then I say that, and Naz and Gilman aren't tackling very well. So I don't know. Maybe you reach a point where it's like, hey, let's put him back there and hope a couple hit him in the tummy like they did in college, and he can make some plays for us, and maybe that'll offset the tackling. It's hard to say. It might be time to try it just to see if you can kind of manufacture a couple plays on defense because they're having a hard time creating plays.
Yeah. All right. Nick wants to know, any free agent wide receivers worth looking at? He's asking for Justin Herbert.
In the offseason?
No, right now. Like Odell Beckham
right
Jr.?
now?
Yeah. It puts you to sleep. There's like no good wide receivers out there.
Yeah, I don't have a list in front of me. Do you have a list in front of you?
No, I don't. No, OBJ is the only name I can think of. I was stuck on wide receivers on other teams that the Chargers could get. But no, I mean, everybody keeps saying Will Fuller, but he retired, and OBJ, I think, is the only other one that's on the streets that hasn't signed yet. But he's fully healthy, so he should be back soon. Nick asks, can we talk about how the O-line is the real issue? Yes, coaching, lack of wide receiver, and Herbert's injury aren't perfect, but the real issue is the lack of protection. This game proves it. I don't buy into that at all because I think the offensive line did a really good job today protecting Herbert. Filer's had his issues. When Storm Norton's had his issues. Saylor has been a rock. Zion's been a rock. Lindsley's still a stud. Pipkins looked a lot better today, though he went down. I don't think it's about the O-line being the real issue. Do you think? Do you think the O-line is the crux of this issue?
I think it's been a problem in the running game. I think the O-line has been an issue in the running game, and I think the reliance on zone as opposed to power has been an issue in the running game. I think overall pass protection, it was leaky for a few weeks, but it seemed like it was much better today. I don't remember Herbert really taking any hits today off the top of my head. I don't think he got sacked, and he was able to get the ball out and make plays when he needed to. So, I mean, has the offensive line been perfect? No. I mean, Garrett mentioned it. Filer's been bad at times. He's been better the last couple weeks, but he started off his first 4 or 5 weeks were pretty brutal.
Ooh, how about falling forward 3 yards today? Lunging and missing his block and getting a penalty on top of it on the ineligible man downfield on that big Palmer catch. Whew.
Great play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
he's
was
definitely
bad.
had his issues. They've had issues with when they had Clapp in there because Lindsey was hurt. Pipkins, everybody was celebrating Pipkins early in the season. I think he's taken a turn for the worse. I know he's playing on a banged up knee, but he has not been good for at least 3 or 4 weeks now. So I mean, the offensive line has been an issue at times, but I think there's global issues going on, personnel, scheme,
Yeah.
all of it has been an issue.
Obi-Wan, did this game push you further to either side of fire or keep Lombardi train?
I mean, we both said we wanted them to fire him during the bye week. So I don't know how much further on that side of things we can get at this point, outside of like hang him or I don't know where
give out his
where
home
else we can
address.
go from there. We already want him to get fired and lose his job. How much more on that side of things do you want us to be?
Well, did Lombardi push you the other way? He's terrible, but not. I guess you can keep him till the end of the season. Did he push you that way?
I mean, they're going to keep him till the end of the season.
Yeah, no, but I'm
Either
saying
way.
you personally. Did it change anything today?
I mean, there were some adjustments made in terms of the route combinations they were calling and route structures that I think helped Herbert and helped guys like Palmer and Carter get open. But there were still some spacing issues. There were still a couple of instances where it seemed like guys were in the wrong places and they were crowding particular parts of the field, which has been a big issue all season long. So nothing has changed for me. I don't think he's good. I think there are times when execution has made him look worse than he is, but overall, I don't think he's been very good, and I do not think he should survive the upcoming offseason since I don't think they're going to fire him since he survived the bye week.
Yeah. Yeah, at some point they'd have to go on a pretty big losing streak for them to fire Lombardi in game. But it just felt like with the bye week and Shane Day and the relationship he has with Herbert and Staley, it just seemed like the easy transition to a new play caller during the bye week. But they didn't do it, so they're going to keep him unless the floor falls out here and they lose, a bunch of games in a row. Do any of these names from Jack tickle your fancy? Isaiah Ford, Mohamed Sanu, John Ross?
No.
How about Tyrell Williams?
The only one in that first list that I might consider is John Ross, just because he offers something that nobody else on the roster offers. Now, he hasn't been productive in the NFL. He doesn't catch the ball that well, but he's fast, and he might help them take the top off the defense a little bit and open some things up underneath, which I guess is why I'm not that excited, because I feel like they would just use him as a decoy and still throw the ball underneath. So getting excited about them signing somebody is hard when you're not convinced that they're going to use them properly.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. What are your predictions for the next 2 weeks? They play the 49ers and the – help me out, chat. Chiefs? Right? Is that the next one? Oh, you might be right. Chat can help us out, I'm sure, so we don't have to look this up. But they're really blowing it right now because they haven't given us it yet, and we're wasting time. Let's see. San Francisco. Yeah, KC, Arizona. Yep. Okay. It's at San Francisco and Kansas City's at home.
I think when we picked these games at the start of the season, I think I picked them to win both of these games. And I still think the 49ers scare me because it seems like they're getting healthy and they're rounding into shape and they're getting better, which is a little scary. I feel like there's always the potential with the 49ers for that god-awful Jimmy G game where he makes a couple big mistakes and he keeps the other team in the game. But playing in San Francisco on Sunday night, they're not playing particularly well. It's hard to pick them to win that game. I hate to be a Debbie Downer as the end of the show's coming up, but I feel like it's kind of foolish to pick them to win either one of those games.
Okay, so you're going 0-2 in the next 2 weeks?
I'm going 0-2.
Oh, yep. Okay, all right. Yep, I am too. This is part of the reason why, like Junior says, do we think McCaffrey's going to go for 300 yards next week? Everybody's having career games. Is that what's McCaffrey's career game, and then add 10 more yards, and that's what they're going to give up on Sunday. And then Nick, just for clarification, you misunderstood what I said. The O-line looked at its best this season, and we finally moved the ball with consistency. Issue the past few weeks has been the O-line. Oh, gotcha. Okay. You're not saying that the O-line as a whole was the issue. It's that they were good today and they were able to move the ball. Got it. Okay. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching and listening. Chargers get a big win on the road, and I think that's the most important thing. We'll end as we began. You don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. And what we said early on was it's hard to win on the road. They got a road win. This is the quote-unquote first place Atlanta Falcons. They got to win, and they were able to make some stops late and get that win on a last-second field goal. It was ugly, but they got it done. So thanks so much. I appreciate you guys, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.